Yo, welcome to All Things Covered with Patrick Peterson and Bryant McFadden, part of the CBS Sports Podcast Network. The name says it all. This is a special bonus episode on the heels of the major news in college athletics last week, allowing student athletes to finally profit from their name, image, and likeness. I'll be chatting with two outstanding financial advisors today to get their perspective on the most recent events in the NCAA. I'd like to welcome in Jason R. Pace and Walter Stith. And before we get into our conversation, I do want to note Morgan Stanley Smith Barney LLC, Morgan Stanley. It affiliates, and Morgan Stanley Financial Advisors or private wealth advisors do not provide tax or legal advice. Clients should consult their tax advisor for matters involving taxation and tax planning, and their attorney for matters involving trust and estate planning and other legal matters. Walter and Jason are financial advisors with the Wealth Management Division of Morgan Stanley in Atlanta. The information contained in this podcast is not a solicitation to purchase or sell investments. The views expressed herein are those of the author and may not necessarily reflect the views of Morgan Stanley Smith Barney LLC, member SIPC, or its affiliates. Now that business is taken care of, let's get into the major business at hand. The NIL, name, image, and likeness. Last week, if you guys have been living under a rock, if so, I hope you have some beverages and some food because you missed a lot. The NCAA, they're allowing student athletes to be able to profit off their name, image, and likeness. I once played on the collegiate side of things. These two guys that are joining me, Jason and Walter, they have an athletic background as well. But they get a chance to see things from a different perspective when you talk about athletics, because now they're in the financial world. So I thought it would be imperative to be able to tap into the financial side when it comes to this groundbreaking news that we heard last week. So we were able to get some of the best Morgan Stanley has to offer. And Walter and Jason join us here. So the first question for you guys, your initial thoughts on how this NIL news will change the collegiate athletic landscape.
Well, BMac, hey, first off, I'll say thanks for having us on, man. It's just great to be here. Love to chop it up with you. But yeah, you're absolutely right. It is changing the landscape, right? Guys and gals are looking at this completely different. Now they're able to earn a little bit of money off the field, and it's really going to be interesting to see where it goes, right? I'm sure we'll talk more about it, but yeah, it is definitely changing the way kids look at, what they're doing on the field and being able to profit off.
Hey, Brian, thanks again for having us on the show, BMac. Really appreciate the opportunity to share our thoughts and talk about some ideas about name, image, and likeness. Mm-hmm. My first initial thought was excitement, right? Being a former athlete, played college football at Western Michigan University, knowing what it's like to be a student athlete and not to have time to have a job. For the student athletes out there that now are presented with the opportunity to make money off of their name, image, and likeness, very excited about them. But also as a financial advisor, sitting on the business side, I understand that there's some things that are going to come up, some issues that maybe we haven't thought of yet, because this is the beginning of this. We're 6 days in now. So there's going to be so many things that come up and so many things that we have to learn. So we're all kind of pioneers in this space. And we'll talk a lot about the way I see things now as a financial advisor. But I also can talk about what it would have been like for me as a student athlete.
So let's target this topic from the financial side of things, from you guys. And I'll start with you, Walter, first. What are the pros and the cons of the new news allowing student athletes to be able to profit off their name, image, and likeness? If you guys can give me maybe 2 pros and 2 cons, or just 1 pro and 1 con, what would they be?
I would first start off by saying the pros are, students have an opportunity to participate in the business of the NCAA, right? They get to participate in the revenue that is generated in several different industries from sport. As a student athlete, of course, some students are on scholarship, some students aren't on scholarship. But one of the pros is that student athletes are now put into a position where they are called not CEOs, Chief Executive Officers, but they're now CEAs, Chief Executive Athletes, where they have to then make a decision and create a business that's based upon their name, image, and likeness. So one pro is the opportunity to participate in the revenue that is generated by college sports. That's a pro. Another pro is student athletes are thinking about themselves, right, in terms of their own marketability and how they can generate income and create revenue for themselves. That's another pro, be able to make money to support themselves outside of the money that they may be getting from scholarships, or if they're getting Pell Grant or something like that. Just an opportunity to make money. That's good, right? Anybody that can get paid off their name, image, and likeness and become an entrepreneur, that's all good. Some of the cons, knowing that a lot of student athletes haven't had a job before, right? And I talk to student athletes all the time. They go from a position where they've never filled out a resume, they've never sat in an interview, and I'm talking blue chip athletes, right? Guys that their job was to be an athlete so that they could then get a scholarship. So now you have these same athletes who've never interviewed, filled out a resume, even looked at or thought about a LinkedIn profile. Now they're in a position where they're dealing with sometimes billion-dollar companies, and they're representing themselves. So you have student athletes who've never been employees, and their first job is an employer because they're hiring marketing managers, right? There are agents out there that are specific for NIL, as you can see the ads starting to go out there. So my concern, the con is some student athletes who have no business experience, not for any faults of their own, just because of the simple fact that sometimes when you're an athlete, that is a full-time job. But when you think outside of sports and athletics and you go into the business world, and you're thinking about hiring people to represent you when you've really never been hired yourself, I feel the cons are the student athletes may not be prepared, especially when you're talking about freshmen, redshirt freshmen, younger athletes that are coming out of high school. Some of the cons could be, I think, the landscape of competitiveness amongst all sports, especially when it comes to recruiting, because schools with bigger programs, schools that have bigger support, schools that have larger alumni base that support the athletics programs, the student athletes that go to those schools are going to have more opportunities by the simple fact that their school is in a Power 5 school or in a huge conference. So they have a very robust alumni that are out there willing to give opportunities to the student athletes. And just the con of that is knowing that some student athletes may not be prepared for what's to come, that they could be taken advantage of, right? That they may not understand the language in the contracts that they're reading. So that's one con. And it could be, and another con could be that it could be a deterrent or a distraction, right, from their athletics because they're so focused on making money, right? And then some athletes may get into a position where they make so much money and they feel like they made it, like, oh, I don't need football anymore. And then they transition out and then they feel like they can really make it on their own. And it's not the case. So I think that, the con is just the lack of education that's going to go into it. Changing the competitiveness with larger schools being able to use that as use that in the recruiting process, right? So it's not going to be long before there's a list of, our student athletes on average are making X amount of dollars. That's why you want to come and play ball here. It's going to change up the competitive landscape. Long answer, but 2 pros and 2 cons.
Well, you hit all the buttons you were supposed to hit. I can tell you that much. What you got for us, Jason?
Yeah, and so Walter kind of summed that up and did a really good job. The only thing I'll add is, again, just quite simply, the money these kids are going to be making, right? That is a pro. They're going to be able to put some money in their pocket, right? A little bit over than what they were getting. A lot of them are getting scholarships now. They may get a stipend, but now you have the ability to earn a little bit of money extra on the side to do something with, right? But along with that money also comes some responsibility, right?
Yeah.
And again, we'll get into this a little deeper, but not only do you have to now budget this money, now you got to think about taxes. Now you got to think about, okay, what does that mean, right? And so I think that's going to be a con. And then Walter also hit the nail on the head. How much of a distraction is this, right? Again, this when you're playing college ball, your time's already limited, right? So now, how much time am I willing to devote to playing video games online with fans, right? How much time am I willing to go to a photo shoot, right?
And you know what, Jason, real quick, I think because of that concern, I don't expect to see a lot of the student athletes doing a lot of off the field taking advantage of a lot of off the field opportunities because they don't have enough time.
Right.
You know what I mean? Even, the professional athletes, they don't do a lot during the season because they have so much time that they have to devote to their craft. But when you factor in student athletes, not just playing a particular sport, but also trying to maintain the academic requirements, you can't do a lot during season. You know what I mean? So that's a good point by you.
Right. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see again how this all plays out. So does this happen, or people doing these endorsements in the off season, or how much of this is happening on Sundays after the game on Saturday, right? Again, when you're supposed to be rehabbing and getting your body right and starting to study and get ready for the next team. So, we'll see how that plays out.
Yeah. How would you guys advise student athletes to create opportunities for themselves? Let's start with you, Walt.
Well, first and foremost, I would say, decide if you're a student athlete, if this is something that you even want for yourself. Like, do you want to be, do you want to use your name, image, and likeness to promote a company, to promote a brand, right? So I think one of the first things you have to decide is, one, do I want to create something for myself and use my own name, image, and likeness, or do I want to associate myself with someone else's brand where I sign a contract to market some other company or some other product? So that's two things that you have to consider. One, is this something that I want to sell myself? I see a lot of players are starting apparel lines of their own where they're coming up with their own logos and they're creating their own products. And then others are just using their maybe their social media influence to market brands, whether it be restaurant. I've seen deals with restaurant deals. I've seen, tech deals come out. So deciding, what do you want to do? Do you want to represent yourself and create your own thing, or do you just want to use your social media influence or whatever type of influence you have as a student athlete to promote someone else's brand?
Yeah.
And I'll say this again, social media is a great equalizer, right? That allows you for little to no cost to go ahead and promote yourself, right? I think that's where, again, we also talk about, Walt mentioned earlier, the competitive disadvantage from some of the Power 5 school versus the smaller schools, right? But if the kids are able to leverage social media so that they build their own brand kind of outside of that school and outside of that, footprint, right? Then yes, the world's going to be your oyster. I mean, I don't know if folks saw it, but there were two girls that played basketball at Fresno State. Again, not a big conference, not a big school, but they've done a deal and they had a billboard in Times Square, right? Gymnasts, LSU, right? Again, not one of the main sports that you would think about when you talk about name, image, and likeness. Most people are thinking football or men's basketball, but again, gymnast with 5 million TikTok followers, right? She's been able to harness social media to build her own brand. And I think that's where the power is going to be for these kids going forward.
Yeah, and talking about some of the other notable deals we've seen so far, Master P, who we had on the show during the football season, his son, Hersey Miller, signed a $2 million deal with an app company, if I'm not mistaken. I can't remember the exact name. We've seen Spencer Rattler create his own logo. Pretty cool logo, by the way. It's like a rattlesnake. We've seen so many different outstanding deals. Web Apps of America is who Hersey Miller signed his deal with. and they're just coming in by the boatload. You know what I mean? It's almost like we're hearing new news regarding a student athlete every day. And with that being said, for you guys, this question, Jason, you can start off. How important is it for student athletes to become more financial aware and financially savvy?
I mean, it's crucial. It's crucial. Again, you mentioned that $2 million deal by Hersey Miller, right? Masterpiece, right? Think about that. $2 million, and he's probably 19 years old, right?
Probably, yeah.
You know, maybe 18, 19 years old, right? So now, again, not only is he thinking about that 2 million that came in, we got to be aware of the tax implications of that, right? And then again, just because you got $2 million doesn't mean you need to go spend $2 million. We need to think about budgeting, saving. He mentioned giving back, right, as part of what he wanted to do. So again, I think guys and gals really have to take a holistic approach to this, right? And financial literacy is key.
And I'll add to that in terms of thinking about the finances of this. When I was in school, I don't know about you, Brian, but I received Pell Grant. Did you get Pell when you were in school, Brian?
No, I didn't get Pell Grant.
Didn't get Pell Grant. Okay, so I got full Pell Grant when I went to school. I was on scholarship, got full Pell Grant, so that means I received a refund at the end of the semester because
them Pell Grant checks used to be huge too. I used to be mad I wasn't getting. Yeah, no question.
Yeah, they were huge. They were nice size checks. I remember my very first check when I got to Western Michigan. Literally was in my dorm room mailbox, and I went down, opened it up. It was $1,600. Now again, you know, when you're a freshman in college and you get
that's a lot of money.
That's the biggest check you've ever seen.
Yes, sir.
So now student athletes who are looking at name, image, and likeness, not only student athletes, but also the programs, right? The athletic programs, they have to then monitor how much each student athlete is getting, because some schools have full scholarships, some schools have need-based scholarships. And so if you're a student athlete and you're going out, and let's say you're getting a $2 million deal and your scholarship was based upon your financial need base, now you don't need that anymore because you have to report that income. All right, so then how does that affect? Now you're receiving this name, image, and likeness, which could in turn affect your financial aid. Now you have to write a check to your school, right, for whatever difference was not being paid by your scholarship.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's something that the financial aid offices now will have to kind of figure out how they manage student athletes who are need-based, right? So then what do? How much can you make from name, image, and likeness before it affects your scholarship?
Yeah. And growing up, you know, just in life in general, some of the best living moments, best learning moments is when you go through something. When you experience something, you learn from those experiences. But when it comes to in the financial world, you don't want to learn by going through experiences that might not be in your best favor, because that means you're losing money. I've had some of those issues when I was playing. I had a few learning experiences where I lost money. So when you look at the landscape of college football, there are the majority of student athletes, they're not financial savvy. They're not, financial literate, to say the least. And the same can be said for some of their guardians. So I'm going to act like I'm a parent. My son is getting ready to be a sophomore at Florida State, who plays quarterback. They say he will be a first-round draft pick in a year. He's getting all these different sponsorships coming at our door, wanting to sponsor him. I'm not financially literate, to say the least, and he isn't either. So I'm asking you two guys for your expertise when it comes to how should we manage this money? What should we do? I don't have a lot in my bank account. Heck, he doesn't even have a bank account, but now we need to get these things going. We need to find a way to set up a financial portfolio to be able to manage this money the right way. What would be the advice what advice would you give me? Because there are a lot of parents that might be in the actual same situation that I'm, expressing to you guys now. I'm acting out to you guys now. So what advice would you give me, being a parent where I have a top tier type talent as a son who's getting so many different opportunities off the football field, but we're not financially literate?
Yeah, I'll say this first off. First you got to take the time to educate yourself, right? again, I think so many people want to rush into this. Oh my gosh, you just signed this huge deal, or we're getting this money off the field. And now let's go buy a car, let's go buy a house, let's go do all these things, right? I think at the beginning, you really want to take it slow, and you want to sit down and try to find somebody to help you, right? To kind of walk you through this, because I do think that it is a process. Education, financial literacy is a process that people have to go through, right? And again, like you said, you don't want to make a mistake early on, right? So again, I think it's better to take it slow, get somebody to help you, walk down that path.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Walt? What you got? What kind of advice you got for me?
I would follow up with what Jason said. Education is first. First, you need to understand the contract that you are signing with the vendor. You need to understand how it pays. Are you getting paid in product? Are you getting paid cash? Are you getting paid all at once? Are you getting, or is the company paying you in terms of a stipend? How is the money coming in? But anytime you're looking at giving someone some sort of advice financial, you first have to find out, all right, where are you right now? Right? What are your immediate needs? What do you need right now? How much does it cost you to live right now? Most of these, if we're talking NIL, these are student athletes. And a lot of times student athletes are on scholarship. But again, there are some student athletes that may not be on scholarship. So one, what do you need the money for? Do you need it for books? Do you need supplemental income to just take care of really petty cash? Are you saving up for a car? Do you have a car? Do you have insurance? Do you have a cell phone bill? Some student athletes now have families, right? If you're married, do you have kids? So planning just kind of goes into thinking about first an assessment of where you are, like what's your current position, and then an evaluation of what your goals are, defining, what you want in life. And I guess at this point, what you want your college experience to be. And then from there, determining how much that's going to cost you, right? So what your needs are, what your current situation is, looking at what your bills are, determining how much of your name, image, and likeness deal will cover your expenses for 6 to 9 months. And then beyond that, what do you want to do, right? What is your goals after your playing days are over? So what do you plan on doing once you graduate from college? How much of that money can you save now, right? To be able to set yourself up for when you graduate from college or you transition into that next thing.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think one piece of advice I would give to the student athletes, if you're getting, a lot of opportunities away from the football field, you must remember, especially for the kids that are on scholarship, everything is paid for already, basically. Your room and board is paid for, your meals. You don't have to go out and necessarily buy a lot of clothes because you can wear the team issue gear to class. So you should be saving the money. And my personal opinion for me, and it's kind of easy for me to say so because I went through college and I know it could be an eye-opening experience for you to walk on a college campus and you just had a $20,000 signing. You're a college student. You're 18, you're 19, you're 20. I just hit for $20,000 in 2 hours. Like, wow, save. Now I'm going to splurge a little bit. You know what I mean? I'm going to have fun. When I go into the club, it might be a little different from me right now. You know what I mean? I just made $20,000 in 2 hours. And I got another signing for $5,000 next week. You know what I mean? So it's going to be hard to discipline the urge to splurge and have fun. But understand you don't know what the future holds. So you should be able to understand the moment, take advantage of it, but save the money. You don't need to spend for it. You don't. You know what I mean? I know you might have, obligations at home, but don't allow that to be your obligation. You know what I mean? It's okay in helping people, but try to save. If you're a top tier first round like talent, you're going to have so many opportunities this year and until you leave. Set a financial goal for yourself. Whatever money I get off the football field, I want to save at least 85% of it. Set goals. We do it all the time. And you guys know this, playing athletics. We set individual goals for whatever sport we're in, right? Mm-hmm. Every year you set goals. You set team goals and you set individual goals. Guys have guys and girls have to do the same thing, knowing that they can capitalize on their name, image, and likeness. So set financial goals for yourself. If I can get $30,000 in a year, I need to save 85% of that. I need to save 75% of that. So the same goals you set on the football field, on the court, on the diamond, set in your financial portfolio. That's something that I would advise to the student athletes that are watching and listening to us. Last question for you guys, and I'll start with Jason. What is the one thing you know now that you wish you knew as a student athlete?
And I think what you were just saying leads right into my point, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What I wish I knew and wish I took advantage of was just the power of saving and investing early and the power of compounding, right? Again, going back to being able to build those good habits, because that's exactly what you're talking about. Setting those goals, just building good habits, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, again, I know those Yeezys look really good, right? You want a pair of those, but at the same time, you got a budget to make sure you put money aside for taxes. You put money aside for savings, right?
Yeah.
And if you start that early.
Yeah. Got a quick question for you. You said taxes. Will they be taxed on anything they come across off the field? Because I haven't heard anything about, that area of things. Will they be taxed? You know what I mean? So do you have any knowledge on that criteria, if there is a criteria when it comes to taxes? And if so, can you fill us in, and then you can get right back into your point?
Right. And again, folks need to go check with their CPAs, right?
Mm-hmm.
But again, that money is just like when you're in the league and you made money.
Yeah.
All these guys and gals are going to get a 1099 at the end of the year. 1099 is a tax form that basically says this company paid you X dollars.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you think about it, right, from the company's perspective, that's a tax write-off. That's a business expense for them.
Yeah.
So they're claiming that. As a student athlete, you're going to have to claim that income and pay taxes on it, right?
Yes.
And whether it's dollars or even merchandise, right? Again, BMac, you may have some experience with that Nike merchandise, right? They give you an amount that you can go spend. That's taxable to you,
Yep.
right? So that's the thing that, again, all these guys and gals got to get in their head from the beginning. Everything that they get paid off the field or off the court, that's not money that they can go spend right away. They've got to allocate some to pay Uncle Sam, even if it's merchandise, right? You got to come up with the cash to pay for that merchandise that you've been given. So again, that's one of the big takeaways that you're absolutely right. Nobody's talking about that right now.
Yeah. I haven't heard anything tax related with all the news that has come from NCAA and this new information with NIL. But yes, that's something that student, because I know when I was in college, I didn't think about any taxes.
Right.
Tax, yeah, like what? You know what I mean? That's a different world.
Right. So yeah, so from these kids' perspective, that's why you got to think about this holistically, and hopefully many of these schools and institutions are educating these young men and women on that fact, right?
Mm-hmm.
Hey, this is not all free money, right? Some of it's got to go to pay Uncle Sam.
Yeah.
So again, that and just understanding the entire picture, I think is key,
And let's see, one thing that I wish I knew, know now that I wish I knew when I was a student athlete, man, I'd have to reiterate what Jason said. Understanding the power of compounding interest and the advantage of duration, being a young person with disposable income that they could save or invest.
Mm-hmm.
So number one thing, understanding compounding interest, understanding that everything is covered already. So anything that I get in addition to my scholarship is money that I can save for later.
Mm-hmm. Could you elaborate a little more on compound interest?
So compounding interest in its simplest form is the interest on deposits, right? That's calculated based on the initial amount that you put in, but also the accumulated interest from growth, right? So that's compounding interest. So let's say you have an investment that let's say you put $100 into an investment and it earns 10%, right? So that's $100 initially, that's your principal. You earn 10%, which would be $10. Mm-hmm. So that $10 that goes back in to your initial principal will compound because now you have $100 growing as well as $10 growing. So the initial principal growing as well as the interest that you made off your initial principal will continue to compound over years. And the younger you are, the more time you have for the effective compounding to take effect.
Yeah, the way I explain it to people, it's like a snowball rolling down a hill, right?
Mm-hmm.
That snowball gets bigger and bigger as it goes down that hill, right? And so you're earning interest on your interest, right? And again, it grows faster. So again, that's the way I just like to liken it. It's just a little snowball going down the hill. It's going to get bigger and bigger, faster and faster as it goes down that hill.
Good information. Good information. I think also too, it's imperative for these student athletes to start finding ways to educate themselves so they don't get taken advantage of as well. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
Because there are a lot of people that are in your field. They do not utilize the same integrity you guys utilize.
Right.
And that's just how it is. Unfortunately, every ocean has sharks.
Yeah.
And you don't want those sharks to get hold to you.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So I think as a student athlete, you guys hit on it. Educate yourself. Find a way to learn more about money, saving money. We talked about compound interest, talking about investing. You know what I mean? And one piece of advice I would give student athletes, again, just through experiences. If someone is asking you to invest into whatever it is they have, company, business, up and coming opportunity, and they want to borrow money from you, run. If someone wants you to invest into their corporation, but they want to borrow money from you, run. Because if you do that, you might as well count that as a loss. That doesn't make any sense at all. I'm not lending any money out. It's almost like lending money out to a family member. You may get it back. You might not get it back.
Yeah.
And I'm only speaking through experiences.
Yeah.
So those are things that you should pick up on from what we're telling you. And these are things you should continue to try to learn about, because you guys, these student athletes will get opportunity to cash in big time. And it's going to be a snowball effect of opportunities, financial opportunities, but you don't want to get taken advantage of, because like I said, the integrity that Jason and Walter have, Morgan Stanley has, there are a lot of individuals, there are a lot of financial corporations that might not utilize the same integrity. And when they see a little fish that's just nonchalantly just moving around, them sharks will come and they take advantage of you and anybody you're associated with. This was a great informative opportunity for myself. I know the listeners and the viewers definitely enjoy this information that these guys have been able to give us. I like to thank Morgan Stanley for allowing us to have two of their top advisors, Jason Pace and Walter Stith, joining me here for this bonus episode of All Things Covered, just covering the new news, the NIL, student athletes being able to capitalize on their name, image, and likeness. This is going to be a story throughout the entire year, not just in the month of July, but this is something we're going to talk about in October, November, going into 2022, because we will continue to learn as we go. But most importantly, for the student athletes that are involved, you don't want to learn as you go. You want to learn before you get started, because the best way to have a winning ball game is to be well prepared before the game starts. You don't want to be prepared or get prepared while the game is already going, because 9 times out of 10, you're going to get behind the 8 ball and now you're fighting from behind. Be prepared before the game gets started. And now the game is about to start preparing yourself as much as possible. Any other shout outs you guys will have, or you can kind of let the people know, our listeners and our viewers, a little bit about your day-to-day routine at Morgan Stanley. I mean, you guys do an outstanding job, but if anybody would like to learn more about, yourself, Jason and Walter, how can they, or any other shout outs you guys would like to give before we let you go?
Well, sure. I'll say, well, it's who's going to start, right? Me and Walt.
Yeah.
No, BMac, first off, thanks again for having us on here. After doing this for 23 years, work with athletes and families, again, you've hit a bunch of points, I think, that need to be echoed. Again, making sure you're educating yourself. Spend the time to understand this stuff, right? Because you don't want to be that victim that falls prey to the wrong person or the wrong investment, right? So spend a lot of time educating yourself and understanding how taxes and all that stuff work before you jump out there. And you know, again, like I said, go spend that money on those Yeezys. But again, at Morgan Stanley, our team here, been doing this for, like I said, a really, really long time. Been working with athletes and their families, manage over $2 billion for folks. You know, folks can check us out on the web. They can just Google Jason, Pace, Walter Stith. Our team is called the Armed Compass Group, right? Mm-hmm. And so folks just follow us there and, you know, check us out.
Wow. Did you say you guys have managed $2 billion?
Yes, sir. So yeah, if you look at the clients that we manage money for about 300 households, and it's about $2.1 billion.
Oh, it must mean you're not losing money. You keep getting clients. I want to be. Hey, you got to be rocking with the people who ain't losing money. These are $2 billion over 300 households. Those some nice households too. They must be living in gated communities.
We take all kinds. You know,
I know you take all kinds.
Doctors, lawyers, business owners, we work with them as well.
No doubt.
Yeah.
No doubt. Hey, man, it's a pleasure, man. And I appreciate you guys joining me here. All Things Covered with Patrick Peterson and Bryant McFadden. Bonus episode, like I said, just talking about the new news in the NCAA, with the NCAA allowing student athletes to capitalize off their name, image, and likeness. Informative. So I hope you guys enjoyed this bonus episode. Please, we will continue to provide bonus episodes like this for you guys throughout this process. So this might not be the last time you see these two guys joining me. Who knows?